It's now clear to anyone paying attention that the West is digging its own grave by continuing to exploit the African continent. This is not just my personal view. Some of the most respected analysts in the world are raising the alarm because the situation is becoming increasingly urgent. In this video, we're going to break down the path towards the West's self-inflicted collapse, maybe even global conflict, with Africa sitting right at the center. We're going to do that through the analysis of former Goldman Sachs executive Coleman. If the West fails to grasp this reality, the consequences will be catastrophic, not only for Africa, but also for Europe and the United States, with a very real possibility of global war. But this is not only a warning to the West, it's also a warning to Africa as well, because in many cases, Africans are helping advance Western interests at the expense of their own future. So if you want to understand how the destinies of Africa and the West are completely intertwined, for the better or for the worse, and you care about a stronger future for the continent, then this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is TJ, I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. So let's talk about a man who knows this story from both sides. Coleman. He was an anti-apartheid activist who later became a CEO of Goldman Sachs, Sub-Saharan Africa, a man who has seen the struggle for African freedom and the mechanisms of global finance up close. In one of his writings for Project Syndicate, Coleman called for a Marshall Plan for Africa, a Western-led initiative to invest in Africa's growth. On the surface, investment in the continent of Africa sounds noble, but buried inside was a warning that if the West keeps exploiting Africa instead of building with it, the consequences will not stop at African borders. That article, written a year ago, was not just a plea for partnership, it was a prediction. And now, looking at the trajectory from his prediction to his latest interview, we can see how alarmingly accurate he has been. Everything he's warned about is starting to unfold before our eyes. Many of you have dropped comments asking how you can support this channel, even offering to donate or help financially. Until recently, I had no way to make this possible, but now through my Substack, it's never been easier for you to lend me some support. There's a free tier where you'll get one email per week, and for just $5 a month, about the price of a nice coffee, you'll receive a daily written update from all of my content, everything I produce. I'll be engaging with those of you who join, asking your thoughts on how to serve you and the continent better. Sometimes my videos do get demonetized, and there's also a small chance, as we saw with the Platform Africa stream, that a channel like this could be deplatformed. Even if the worst happens, we can regroup, rebuild, and keep pushing forward. We don't want any third party controlling this message, so with email backing us up, we can communicate directly. Thank you in advance for signing up. I look forward to connecting with you, not just on YouTube, but via email as well. By 2100, 4 in every 10 people on Earth will be African. That means that Africa will either be an engine for global growth or the epicenter for a global crisis. And whichever path we take depends on this one question. Will the world help empower Africa to rise, or will it continue to simply drain it? In his latest conversation, Coleman paints two future paths for the continent. The first is a future where Africa industrializes, where its resources build African wealth, where its youth powers innovation, and where the continent takes its rightful place in global trade. The second future is a dark one, where the same exploitative systems continue, where Africa's raw materials keep feeding Western profits, while its people are left in poverty. In the second future, the result is inevitable: mass migration, collapsing states, and a wave of instability that will cross into Europe and the United States. And if you've been paying attention to some of the biggest issues in the West, we are already seeing this evidence. The migrant crisis that Coleman warned about is now reshaping Western politics. Across Europe and America, the conversations have been hijacked by fear of migrants. The 2025 Trump election in the United States was dominated by what was termed the migrant invasion, which highlighted record numbers of immigrants arriving at America's borders from all across the globe. It became one of the defining issues of his campaign and subsequent presidency, leading to the deployment of ICE agents in nationwide crackdowns on undocumented migrants. In the UK, protests and riots have erupted around immigration as well. The same across Europe, where we're starting to see some extremist movements anti-immigration rising again. These are not isolated incidents. These are symptoms of a much deeper global sickness. The very same exploitation that impoverishes Africa is radicalizing Western politics. This is where Coleman's warning becomes even more chilling. When they build their comfort off the suffering of others, the reaction always comes. That's how fascism was born in Europe. It didn't erupt overnight. It grew slowly through greed, arrogance, and denial. It rose from the same ingredients we see today: inequality, propaganda, and fear. From Hitler's Germany to Stalin's Russia to Mao's China, whether it be right extremism or left extremism, it produced the deadliest humanitarian catastrophes in history. We don't need to repeat that story, but every sign suggests that we are walking down a similar path. We are already seeing the early signs. Anti-immigrant sentiment is rising in Europe. Far-right politics, far-left politics, both having their groundings. Governments are militarizing borders to keep global South immigrants out, while their corporations are deepening their control inside Africa and the rest of the global South as well. This is not strategy. This is self-sabotage, because the more the West exploits Africa, the more it destabilizes the very global system it depends on. Just look at Sudan, a nation rich in gold and minerals, torn apart by conflict that foreign interests have quietly benefited from. Western and regional powers back rival factions for influence, while ordinary Sudanese people flee for safety. Those same people displaced will end up crossing borders, entering the migration route the West is now trying to close. Every war for Africa's resource creates another exodus, another crisis that ripples far beyond the continent. And with that exodus comes another tragedy: the brain drain. The best and brightest African minds, engineers, doctors, economists, innovators, end up leaving the continent in search of stability and opportunity abroad. These are people who could be driving Africa's transformation, building industries, shaping politics, and creating a future on African soil. But instead, they get absorbed into Western economies, enriching other nations while their homelands remain undeveloped. Across the UK, Europe, and America, Africans now sit in parliaments, run major corporations, and lead financial institutions. They are proof of African excellence, but also of Africa's loss. Because if the continent were not still chained by neocolonial structures, these same people would be building Africa's prosperity from within. And Sudan was just one example. From the cobalt mines of Congo to the oil fields of Nigeria, African resources have powered the world's industrial revolutions and digital economies. Yet Africans are left with polluted lands, broken institutions, and crushing debt. This type of imbalance will not last forever, because when a continent of 1.4 people is denied prosperity, the impact will hit the entire globe. The irony is that the West's best chance to preserve stability is the same thing it's resisting: an empowered, united, and industrialized Africa. A self-sufficient Africa means fewer wars, fewer refugees, and more trade. It means balance in global power. But Western institutions still cling to IMF policies, exploitative trade deals, debt traps, all designed to keep Africa dependent. Coleman's warning was clear: if Africa's development fails, the political backlash in the West will be catastrophic. The rise of fascism, xenophobia, and violent nationalism will tear Europe and America apart in political and ideological tribalism, possibly even sparking things like civil wars. The shallow thinkers will continue to blame migration from the global South as the Western denial deepens. The refusal to face the truth that their prosperity has been built on will be a miscalculation they cannot recover from. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why the West is currently digging its own grave, because every act of exploitation deepens that hole. The only way out is partnership, not plunder. Africa doesn't need another Marshall Plan. It needs sovereignty. It needs to process its own resources, build its own industries, and control its own future. So the question isn't whether Africa will rise, it's whether the world will rise with it or collapse, trying to hold Africa down. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Please give me your thoughts in the comments. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much if I asked you to write the words, "It's time to wake up"? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like what I'm doing, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.